What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Team Member Perspective Podcast show. I am Coulter, your host, and we're going to get into part 2 of 7 in our podcast training series around building a sales culture in your agency. First episode, we talked all about how culture is not something that you just teach, but it's something that people catch, right? It's not caught, it's taught. And, thinking of, if you didn't get a chance to listen to that episode, I talked about, if you hire a new team member and that team member walks in and this is their first day, first real experience in your agency employed by you or part of the team, what are they seeing and what are they feeling? Like, what is their experience when they walk in the office? Are they walking in to high energy and to team members that, are banging the phones, hitting their follow-up calls, or is it something different? Or is it low energy? Is there not a lot going on? Are team members showing up early? Are they coming in late? A lot of that is your culture, and it's something that you catch. It's not something that you teach. Okay, it's caught by your people. In this episode, we're going to be talking about part 2, which is, the standard is the standard even when the boss is gone. And this is a big piece, because the cool thing about insurance agency in this business is that agents, you have this opportunity where you don't have to be there and your business can still continue to run and you can still bring in revenue. You don't have to be there. However, what I find most commonly is that a lot of agencies aren't involved, but there's nothing in place in the agency that keeps the standard the standard. There's no systems in place that allow for the same amount of energy and production to maintain when the agent's not in the office. And so today I want to share a few things of how we can make the standard, and how when, you, the agency owner, you're golfing or you're on a trip or you're out of the office, it doesn't matter. There's systems in place that allow the team to maintain that production, maintain that energy. So that's a big deal. I believe that you don't rise to the level of your leadership. I believe that you will rise to the level of your systems. And having system in place for your team, for your agency, allows for the standards to be upheld, allows for everybody to understand what's expected of them, even if agency owner is not in the office. Because a lot of team members, when agent leaves, not a lot gets done. And the agent's stressed on vacation or on the trip or golfing, and they feel like they need to be in the office because that's when things are consistent in regards to production and activity and energy and morale. But what if there was a way that could all still be maintained, the production, the morale, the energy, with systems in place? That's what we're going to talk about today, okay? And so my question first and foremost that I want to pose is, what happens when the agent isn't in the office? Agents, can you answer that question? What happens when you're not in the office? Office managers, sales managers, what's happening? And team members, what happens? Do you notice a difference in the energy, in your production, in the morale when the agency owner is not in the office, when the agent's not in? Do you notice a difference? Okay. If energy drops and production drops, activities drop, we start closing less, then what we're faced with is that you're dependent on the agent, not the systems. You're dependent on personality, not systems. And it becomes very difficult to scale and to grow and to, build a business that continues to grow and compound and provides an opportunity for people when you're not there as the agency owner, right? When the agent's gone, if things start to change a little bit, then, it might be something in regard to a system that it maybe is not in place. But I believe that with the right systems in place, all that can happen without the agent being in the office, okay? And so this episode is all about protecting your sales culture even when the agent is out of the office. That we maintain production, we maintain energy, that we're consistent because we have systems in place that allow us to do that, okay? And so I want to go through a couple systems that I believe can help maintain the standard even when boss is not in. The first system is this. There needs to be a clear daily standard of what is expected of each individual team member to win the day. A lot of us are setting goals for the month and for the year, but we're not looking at it on a daily level. And when we don't do that, our team members don't really know what to do to win. And you'd be surprised. If you're listening to this, you're like, my team knows how to win. Good for you. Kudos for you. Like that's awesome. That's ideal. But I would say that most team members, if I were to ask them, like, how do you win your day? What are your non-negotiables? What are the things that you're trying to accomplish every day that would allow you to win the day? If I were to ask that to out of 10 team members, I would argue that 6 to 7 of them out of 10 would have no idea, or they would come up with something, but not the full thing. Okay. And so a clear daily standard, I think, is so important. Every team member should know exactly how to win the day if we want to build a sales-driven culture. And when I talk about winning the day, I'm talking really speaking to sales team members that are helping bring in revenue into the agency, writing business, pivoting to financial services, getting referrals. And I want to make this really simple for you. This is exactly what you can take to your teams that will allow them to start to win the day. And this is something that I've observed from when I was a team member, right? What I would do, what my non-negotiables were every day that I would do every day that allowed me to have consistency and high levels of production, but also from what I've observed other top producing team members do. Okay. And it's called 55550. It is very simple. And I believe that to have like a daily standard, it needs to be simple. The more complexity that we introduce and the more things that we introduce, the harder it is to become consistent because it's just overwhelming. But this 55550 is very simple. And here's what it is: 5 household quotes and 5 pivots to financial services and 5 asks for referrals or 50 outbound calls. Okay, it's that simple. 55550. 5 household quotes, 5 pivots to financial services, and 5 asks for referrals or 50 outbound calls. This daily standard allows team members to know exactly what's expected of them every day to win the day. And I believe that if you have a team member that gets their 5 household quotes, they get their 5 pivots to financial services, and they get 5 referral asks, but they don't sell anything, they still win the day. And I believe that that is very important to be teaching our team in regards to like accountability, that it needs to be tied to controllable activity. I think we worry far too much about the things we can't control. Like sometimes it's like I could have the best sales pitch in the world, but if the customer tells me no, and I'm only holding myself accountable to sales, then I'm going to be discouraged. And if I'm not wired for rejection, I'm just going to stop doing it. But with this, we're teaching our team like, look, this is what you have control over every day. 55550. And if you can do this consistently day in and day out, you will be successful, or you're going to quit before you do. But this is the recipe to success as a team member. If you're wanting to sell more insurance, close more new business, write more life insurance, get more referrals, this is the recipe. 55550. And like I said, like most team members just don't know what a successful day looks like. This gives it to them very simply. Okay, these are controllable. They're leading indicators that drive production, but they also drive confidence. So really, guys, if there's no definition of winning the day, don't be surprised when people just survive it. Okay, so system number 1 is make sure that you have some form of a clear daily standard of what's expected of your team to win the day. And keep that top of mind. Keep that top of mind. Make it part of your weekly meetings. Make it part of your huddles. How are you doing on your 55550? It could be that simple. And here's the thing, little inside look into coaching. If you have a team member that's putting in the work, right? They're doing the 55550 and they're still not selling policies. It's going to help you eliminate the fact that they're maybe not doing the work, because they are. And it's going to help them understand where the bottleneck is. Okay. Because if I have a team member I want to sell more financial services and they're crushing PNC and they're pivoting, they're getting their 5 financial pivots every day, there's a disconnect somewhere. But this allows me to know how to coach to that specific team member only when we have this clear daily standard in place. Because I would argue that most team members, the reason why they're not selling is because they don't have the activity, they don't have the inputs to get the outputs. They don't have that consistently enough. And I mean, it's that simple. But I think that, instead of like saying, oh, they're not doing the work, maybe take ownership and say, you know what, maybe they don't know what work to do. But when they know what work to do, it becomes very clear on how to win the day. It becomes very clear for them to know what questions to ask or what help to ask for to help them start selling more policies. Okay, so set a clear daily standard. Every single team member should know exactly how to win the day. Okay, system number 2 is have a weekly numbers meeting where everybody on the team gathers for a meeting. Our agency did it on Mondays, where you talk about numbers. It's a meeting where essentially you're going to have an update on the promotions, right? If we are in founders promotion, we're trying to write life insurance. For our team members to be able to win and maintain focus and know what needs to happen for the agency to do its thing and hit its goals, they need to know the score. We need to know the score to win, but also having that weekly cadence of it's a numbers meeting allows for us to systematically ensure that our team members always know the score. Okay. And so have this weekly numbers meeting. Outside of tracking the promotions, add in there year-to-date auto, year-to-date fire, your gain numbers. You could add in there individual production from the previous week, which is huge, right? Think about this is like if each team member really understood how to win the day, 55550, and you're holding this weekly meeting, maybe on Mondays, where it's just a numbers meeting, we're going to get updated on the promotions. They're going to get updated on how the agency's doing in auto insurance and fire insurance. And if there's a piece in there that will allow for accountability to happen in a very natural way that doesn't feel like, team members are being babysat or they're being micromanaged, and it doesn't feel like the agency owner or the office manager or sales manager is doing babysitting or micromanaging. It allows for this accountability to happen when we can have each team member come prepared with their individual production from the previous week. And it could be as simple as this. Like, hey, Joe, what did you write last week? And Joe's going to tell you all the policies he wrote last week. And, maybe you find out that Joe wrote 5 households, a total of 20 policies, but he didn't write a single financial service. That is a coaching opportunity where you can coach in real time to Joe from context from his last week. And you can ask him, did you hit your 55550? Part of that 5 is pivots to financial services. And if he says yes, guess what? There's a disconnect somewhere. But it's going to speak directly to that specific team member when you have them come prepared with their individual production numbers from the previous week. And so this numbers meeting could be very simple. Update the promotions. Get, front run with your production for the month. Get year-to-date auto and fire gain. That doesn't have to happen all the time, but at least every week, have your team members come prepared with their individual production from the previous week, because it's going to help them, kind of learn to become self-accountable and proactive, where it's not going to feel like babysitting anymore. And it establishes this culture of sales, right? If we're not having these weekly meetings around numbers, what we're communicating to our team is that the numbers really don't matter. Because I see that far too often. A lot of agents are saying, yeah, we need to sell more life, and we need to sell more health, we need to do all this. But then I ask the simple question, are you meeting with your team? And some of them say yes, some of them say no. But then I say, well, for those of you that are you holding a meeting where you're just talking about the numbers? Most agencies aren't. And so it's like, well, you're saying that you want the team to focus on life and health, but you're not doing anything to systematize that for them so it actually stays top of mind with the numbers. All right, so hold a weekly numbers meeting with your team. It's a great system for accountability that will help build the sales culture, because here's the thing. A sales culture is built on consistent rhythm. It's not built on this random hype. And far too often, because of how this opportunity is set up, I think we're in these promotions and it's like random hype. It's this start and stop. But if we could just install this weekly numbers meeting and install this system in, things would start to change. Team members aren't going to want to come to this meeting and tell you that they didn't sell anything. They just won't. And so that's going to create some internal drive for them to go out and be proactive and make it happen. So hold a weekly numbers meeting if you aren't already. System number 3, this is more about the individual responsibility for everybody on the team. We're a team, right? This isn't like a golf. It's not like a single person sport. This is a team sport. Everybody, for a team to function, we need to have each individual contribute in their own way. Everybody needs to develop an ownership mindset. An ownership mindset that, like, look, the standard that we're talking about isn't just a team thing, but it's a personal thing. Each team member, each person on the team, I believe, should have this ownership mindset. Like, it's your responsibility. Take ownership, have a standard for yourself, and, follow through with that, right? Follow through with what you commit to. Like, that's one of the biggest ways to build confidence is you call your shot and you actually follow through with that shot, right? And it's really like, it's one of those things that you might need to look inward and think about, like, who am I, right? Who am I? How do I want to be viewed by my team, by my agent? How do I want to be viewed by my wife, by my husband, by my kids, by my parents? Like, that is the standard that we're talking about here. It's who you are, not just what you're told to do. And that is the beautiful thing I believe about this opportunity, being a team member, is that it truly is an opportunity. It's not a job. And you have an opportunity to write your own story. But I believe that story is going to be, mediocre at best if you don't have a standard for yourself. Like, you need to have an individual standard. You need to develop some personal pride about protecting the agency's production and momentum. You need to develop this attitude and this mindset that you are a contributor in a very big way to the agency doing big things. Okay. And so, instead of waiting to be managed, having an ownership mindset, team members are actually managing themselves. Like, that is where we want to get to. Be at a place where you can manage yourselves, where you can do things without having to be just asked or told to do them. And it really is like, this is not just a job anymore. This is an opportunity. When you develop that mindset, you start to kind of think about it in that way, and your brain goes to work and helps you really make the most and capitalize on this opportunity, because it's phenomenal. Okay. Now, to end with this ownership mindset, I want to ask this question, and it's, who are you when no one's watching? Okay. We talked about when the agent's out of the office, but who are you when no one's watching? Who are you? That's the real standard. That is your current standard of who you are when no one's watching. What are you doing when no one's watching? What are you thinking about when no one's watching? Okay, like that right there will give you an inside look into where your standards are right now. Now, the cool thing is you have the capability, you have every ability in the world to raise that personal standard for yourself. And I would encourage you to do so. Raise the standard, raise the bar. You're not in a job, you're in an opportunity. And how you show up on a consistent basis determines who you become. And I believe that who you become determines what you get, plain and simple. And the last system that I want to talk about in this episode is to have assigned roles in the agency, like shared ownership. And what I mean by this is, maybe you have a team member that you are giving ownership of updating the scoreboard. Or maybe you have a team member that you give ownership to training or leading or organizing the training. Someone that you maybe have in charge of a specific line of insurance to make sure that those things are getting updated. And agents, maybe this is you speaking belief into your team and saying, like, look, I see you becoming the team member that completely changes life insurance for this agency. My agent did that. It first started with health, specifically short-term disability. He said, I see that you will be the team member that absolutely crushes health insurance for the agency. He spoke that belief into me, and guess what I went out and did? I did just that. I wrote $38,000 in health premium in 1 year just from selling short-term disability policies alone, because he spoke that belief into me, and he planted that seed, and it is something that I took a hold of and went out and made happen. He did the same thing with life insurance. And well, I ended up, consistently doing over 230 life apps a year, 100,000 in premium, because he said, like, look, now you've tackled the health stuff. Now I want you to become the life insurance team member that makes the biggest difference, the biggest impact in our agency for life insurance. And if I think back earlier into when I was growing up, this speaking belief into people. And by the way, if you're not the agent, but you're an office manager or a sales manager that has, a leadership role in the agency, who's to say you can't speak belief into them? You can. But back when I was growing up, I played baseball growing up, and mom and dad, they invested a lot of money, a lot of time. My goodness, it seems like we were gone every single weekend to play baseball. My brother's in the mix of that now, and it's a blast. We get to go to all of my nephew's games, but it's a commitment, man. And my parents invested all this time and money in for me to do this, and I always remember them telling me, like, hey, you're going to be our 401k. You're going to be our 401k. And that's a story that I empowered. That's a story that became part of my identity. And my brain has gone to work that although I may not be a 401k in the realm of baseball, like I didn't make it to the major leagues, darn it, right? Although I may not be doing it in that way, I can tell you that my brain has gone to work to build something that will allow that to happen, because I was told that I was going to be their 401k. Kind of interesting. And then when I was a missionary, my mission president, President Griffin, he spoke to me one day when I had a one-on-one meeting with him, and he said, look, Colter, I feel like you're going to be a really good businessman. No one up to that point in my life had ever remotely even talked to me about being a businessman. My mission president tells me this, President Griffin tells me this, and guess what my brain did with that? I took it, and it became part of my identity that allowed me to go into door-to-door sales and almost start my own little business, that allowed me to develop that business mindset as a team member. And instead of just treating it like a job, I always treated it like an opportunity. I felt like it was like my own little business, which was crazy. And now I'm running the Team Member Perspective, which is a business, and we've grown exponentially, but it was because that little seed of belief was planted in me by President Griffin that taught me, or almost allowed my brain and everything to go to work to actually make it happen, right? Speaking belief into people is a big deal, and it can completely shift the culture in your agency, because now people have ownership of that. But even on like a smaller level, like I said, having someone update the scoreboard and be in charge of that, someone that's, in charge of making sure we're keeping up with specific lines, someone that's, tracking different things, or someone that's in charge of training for the office, like giving ownership and assigning roles in that way, I have found really helps elevate the sales culture in the agency. And, when someone owns something, like they take it seriously and it becomes almost like their baby. But when one person owns everything, if they're gone, the standards are also gone, right? But when everybody kind of owns something, the standard seems to stay. Right? Things keep going when there's a little bit of shared ownership in the agency. And so guys, it really is the simple things. It's the consistency of these simple things that allow us to build a sales culture, at least from my experience and from my perspective, being in a high performing agency where we did really well. We hit all the goals. We traveled at the highest level. We were in President's Club. We did all those things. And so I got to see it from there. But now, since I've been outside of that, and now I'm helping coach and train and help team members and agencies, like these are the things that I see that top performing agencies all have in common. They have a clear daily standard. Every team member knows exactly how to win their day. They have a weekly cadence where they have a weekly numbers meeting. Went up to Randy Thompson's office on a Monday meeting, and guess what they're talking about? They're talking about numbers. We've got to keep the score if we want our team to win. All of them have given ownership, and almost like this ownership mindset, individual responsibility, and assign these different roles and spoken belief into their team in this way. And I believe that it's a congruence of all of those things that helps us with our culture and getting to more of a sales-driven culture. Okay. And so, at the end of the day, it's not too late. I would recommend that if there's a missing structure here, a missing system that you're not currently doing in your agency, let's put something in place. Like, let's put someone in place. And here's the thing is, again, that shared responsibility. If you're the agent listening to this, you don't have to do it all. Maybe you give ownership to your office manager to get these things in place, to a sales manager. If you don't have a sales manager, hey, maybe that's a role that you can create for your agency and give some ownership to people so that this stuff can get done. So that these systems can be in place so that when you, the agency owner, you're not in the office, you're golfing, you're on your travel trip, you're with your family, whatever the heck you're doing, your agency is still maintaining that energy, that production, because we have the systems in place to allow for that to happen. So the standard must be the standard, regardless of who's watching. Culture to me isn't what happens when the boss is in the office, when the agent's in the office. It's what happens when they're not in the office. Appreciate you guys. Looking forward to part 3, which we will get into the next episode. But again, take one thing, implement this. Take it to your team. And if you're a team member listening to this, be proactive. Go and share this with your agent. Share this with your office manager. Get something in place. Be proactive, right? That's when everybody can be proactive. We can do big things together. Again, my only ask is if you're like, Colter, these have been so awesome. You've been very helpful for me and my team. Please, my only ask is to share this with someone else that you feel like might benefit in the same way that you have. You guys are awesome, and we will catch you in the next one.